Thank you for agreeing to participate in my presentation for my Education 798 class at LSU Shreveport. Before we start, I need you to close your eyes. Imagine you're 7 years old. You're sitting outside with a wrinkled sheet of paper, busted shoes. The shoes are dirty. There's a hole in the left shoe, and you have a dirty white polo shirt on. You're waiting on your bus to take you to school. Think about how you feel as I discuss the research from this project. You can open your eyes. The question is, does social economic status and poverty affect student performance? What does research say about this? Well, normally when we think about this, we think that it's only in one culture or it's only in America. But research showed that in China, as well as in the Netherlands, there was research done to see whether or not the upper class families and the lower class families performed on the same levels. Research found that the upper class families performed better. It said that they performed better because their families were more financially stable, and they were able to give the kids different things to make them sufficient and comfortable in school. So that means the students that were in lower classes, they did not have those. So imagine you as that seven-year-old sitting in a class with upper class students who may not have the busted shoes or who may have a clean white polo shirt on. How will you feel? Okay? But research says that it has been shown that not only in the United States, students across the world perform differently. So that means all of these students that are, the picture that I painted for you, what you look like as a seven-year-old, that's in China, that's in Africa, that's in the Netherlands. It's across the world. It's not just here. Okay? So, with this, I took it upon myself, and I used Louisiana. And it has been shown that in 2012, the state of Louisiana compared the teachers that taught lower class students and upper class students. And their compass ratings, most of the compass ratings for the upper class teachers, they were able to get highly efficient, highly effective, while the lower class teachers, they did not. They were ineffective. But does that mean that it was the student's fault, or was it that teacher's fault? Based on research, they say it's the student, or where the student comes from. Alright? So my goal was to do some research at a middle school in Calcasieu Parish, Oak Park Middle School. Oak Park Middle School consists of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. Oak Park Middle consists of approximately 475 students. The students there are African American, they are Caucasian, there are Spanish kids, Indian kids, as well as some kids from like Cuba and China. So the culture is very mixed. Oak Park Middle is a Title I school. Title I schools, they receive funding from the federal government because most of the percentage of the kids get free or reduced school lunch. Approximately 80% of the students that attend Oak Park Middle receive free or reduced lunch. So that means that these students that attend Oak Park Middle, they are considered lower class students from lower class families. Okay? So Oak Park also, because it's a Title I school, they are able to give the kids additional tutoring in math and English. The kids are actually able to have more resources in the classes. The majority of the classes have computers for the kids to use in their instruction, as well as other technology such as calculators for math, as well as iPads in all of the classes. So, as we look at what I feel, because I said status and poverty does not affect student performance. So, what was done in this study, the students take a Achieve 3000 test in English. The kids are tested at the beginning of a quarter, the middle of a quarter, as well as the end of a quarter. They are tested to see what level they are on. Then next they are tested the second time to make sure they are growing. And then the last time to make sure they have grown to a range that is set for them. So, yes ma'am.
Is that something like a LEAP test, or what kind of test is it? Just to...
It's not a state mandated test because Oak Park Middle is a Title I school and the school score was one number above an F. It's a lower performing school. So the district came up with programs to assist with student performance. So all of the English classes actually give the Achieve 3000 test. So what was done in this study, 60 students were chosen to participate in this study. These students did not know they were a part of a study because this is something that they do regularly in a class setting. So they would come in and their teacher would give them the test. I actually monitored the pre-test as well as the post-test. Okay? So from the pre-test data, if you look at the PowerPoint, you can see that the students were kind of okay. They were on a decent level for the mean average as well as the median. Now, the point that sticks out here is the range score. The range score, I want you to look at it from the pre-test as well as for the post-test with 6th grade. The range score for 6th grade actually increased. So that means that the 6th graders actually grew. Now, remember, these are kids that come to school. If they do not eat breakfast at school, then they don't have breakfast. These are kids that come to school with no paper, with no pencils. All of these things are supplied by the school. One, because it's a Title I school. Yes. Does it make it hard as a teacher? When I spoke to some of the teachers, especially the English teacher, because she teaches writing, she said yes, but she does what she has to do for her students. Now, if you take a look at the 7th grade data, the 7th graders in ELA, when we compare the 7th grade, we always look at 7th grade being the hard grade because they're in the middle and they're trying to see who they are. Now, as a 7th grader, they're dealing with, okay, if I don't eat breakfast at school, then I'm going to be hungry all day until lunch. But then I want to be the big person because I'm in 7th grade, and I want to try and match up to the 8th graders because I'm no longer a 6th grader. The 6th grader are the babies, okay? So, the 7th grade scores, they actually increased as well. They increased as well. Now, I would say that if you have 6th graders and 7th graders, and these students did not go to the same teacher. Oak Park had students that were in regular classes, they have kids that are in special ed classes, and they have an accelerated program. Some of these students were chosen randomly from all 3 of those sections. So this is a mixture of those students. So that means it's not all of the students that can perform that were included in this data. Now, if we look, yes sir.
Question: do you, ratio wise of ethnic background is
Oak Park is, I would have to say, predominantly 90% African American. But the African American students, and this is not going to sound, the African American students are not full-blown African American students.
So that's meaning that they kind of mix, like
they are mixed
with other races.
Yes,
and stuff?
they are mixed. But the district says that they're African American.
And they come from different parts of Calcasieu Parish?
They come from different parts of Calcasieu Parish. Different areas of Calcasieu Parish. But most of these kids, I will say, the families, they do not live in homes where the families pay mortgages. Most of the families rent. Or most of the families live with siblings or, grandparents. So it's that kind of school. That kind of school. Now, the 8th graders were the higher performing at the school. They were the highest performing at the school overall. Maybe because they had been at the school since 6th grade, or they just knew what was expected of them. Okay? They were the highest performers. And probably because at 8th grade, you're ready to go to high school by that time. So it's like, let me get this over with. Let me do what I need to do. Yes, sir.
Out of your 3 grades, which grade would you say had most parental involvement with you?
That's a really good question. And to be honest with you, the parental involvement at Oak Park Middle was maybe 15%.
Of the 3 grades?
Of the 3 grades. As a teacher, I'm a math teacher at the school. We had a math night, and there were 5 families that came to that math night. 5 families.
And you teach all 3 grades?
I teach all 3 grades. There were 5 families that participated in the math night. Yes?
I personally think that means the other families probably didn't care, but
I think that the families, because the situation is, okay, most of the students that are at Oak Park Middle, they have younger siblings. So they have to babysit because the families are trying to work. They're trying to work overnight and all kind of stuff. So they can't come to meetings that are after school.
So that plays a role that parents, well, the employment of some of the kids, young people that you teach, their parents probably at work.
Yes. Yes.
But in each grade they have increased though, right?
Yes.
Each grade has increased, but overall
in English, yes.
It's just math. I mean, not 8th graders was the highest.
8th grade was the highest.
And it could also, I feel like that also, like, maturity play a part of it. Maybe?
Yes, I think that's what the main thing was. I mean, the 8th graders were the maturest group. Mm-hmm. They were the maturest group. We didn't have to say, guys, this is important. Let's, focus. We need to grow, so we didn't have to give the 8th graders incentives.
Yeah, it was kind of like motivation. Like, I want to go to high school.
Yes, they wanted to go to high school. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Which grade do you think had the most pressure on them? And which grade do you think cared the most?
That's a really good question. As I was testing the kids or observing them being tested, honestly, once again, I think it was the 8th graders that cared the most. The 8th graders cared because they were afraid of not making it to high school. I think when you have to put yourself back in the picture of being 7 years old, sitting at the bus stop with a hole in your shoe and a dirty school shirt on. You don't want to stay that way for the rest of your life. So in 8th grade, you know that, hey, I'm still headed to success. And the thing about Oak Park, the majority of the teachers there focus on those students being successful. That's what, it is as a teacher. Now, we also gave the students a Scantron achievement test for the math. Math was totally different from English. We used the same 60 students. They did not know that they were being used for this study. But the pretest was given in the classes. So by that time, they were like, okay, it's a math pretest. We did let them know, guys, we're trying to see what grade level you're on. And when we test you again, the goal is to grow. The goal is to grow. Now, I do know, because I'm a math teacher, we told the math students that we would give them incentives. We said, hey, you grow a certain amount, then we're going to make sure that you're rewarded with something. Okay? Now, the 6th grade, if you look, their average compared to the pretest average compared to the post-test average, the 6th grade grew. They grew 126 points. Now, the 6th graders at Oak Park Middle, they were the most, to answer your question, they were the most challenging group. I think because they were babies, they were not as mature, and it was difficult for them to adapt to middle school. They were the most challenging group, but they grew. Shockingly, I think their growth was phenomenal for the 6th graders. Now, if we look at the 7th graders, the same 60 that were the same amount that were used for the 7th grade, they did not grow, but they did not decrease. They stayed the same. Now, as a teacher, we consider that a plus, because in our mind, the district and the state says that these kids are already going to decrease because of the settings that they live in, because of the environments that they have when they leave school. So we consider that to be good. Okay? Yes, the 7th grade, they I noticed when they were testing, they did not take it as serious as the 6th graders. They did not, but we expected the growth to be minimal. Okay? Now, the 8th grade growth, they grew about 2 percentage points. 2%. Now, we look and say, okay, that's not really a lot. But you have to think about it. It was only maybe 20 8th graders that we used for this sample. Actually, that's good. Okay? Because we don't know if a particular student that was used that day for this study, did they eat? Did the dog, walk them to school? Or what happened that morning? So, based on the English scores and the math scores, I have to believe that the teachers at Oak Park Middle played a very, very, very impactful role on this student performance. My hypothesis was student performance is not affected by socioeconomic status or poverty. I mean, let's look at the fact of these students come to school. Some of them come wrinkled. Some have older shoes than others. Some have to feel, oh my gosh, am I going to be bullied this day? Some have to say, okay, what do I need to do not to get beat up today? I don't want to answer too many questions. But these are things that students of poverty and lower socioeconomic statuses face. But it is the job of the teacher to make sure that these students feel just like a student that is in a higher status or a child that's not living in poverty feels the same. So, yes?
But if you don't have parental involvement, does that make the job of the teacher a little bit even harder?
It makes it harder, but from personal experience, I have to say, it makes it better. Because you build a rapport with the students, and the students appreciate somebody that's not at their house caring for them.
And it helps them to want to work a little harder.
Exactly.
To do better.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Is that? I think that's why some students in some classes, if they don't like the teacher of that class, they might not do as well in that class. But if it's a teacher they like, they might do the best they can.
I agree with you.
Because of respect.
Yes, that's why it's the job of the teacher to make sure you build a rapport with those students. Because although one day Michael may, throw a paper ball at me, but guess what? Another day is here. So guess what? I forgot that Michael threw that paper ball, and I am Mrs. Lewis Parker to Michael, and it's time to say, Michael, let's get math done. We have some test scores to bring up. Let's do what we need to do. So, the math scores in grade 6 and grade 8 increased. The English scores in grade 6, 7th, and 8th increased. Grade 7 math scores stayed the same. When the data was brought to the administrative team, they were happy. They felt like the students were successful. Because once again, I say, the district already believes that the students aren't going to be successful because of their backgrounds. And they feel like no matter what, they're gonna be failures. So yes, you asked, does it make it harder as a teacher? Yes, it does. But it makes it, when the kids show scores of growth and they show growth, then it makes your teaching rewarding. It's satisfying, yes it is. And it makes you proud to be called their teacher. Okay? So, I think that my hypothesis of socioeconomic status and poverty does not affect student performance is a hypothesis that I can agree on because my data shows it. These kids were tested, they were taught, and they were tested again. And everything shows that these kids were able to grow. Although previous data from different countries showed that maybe the girls perform higher than the boys, or no matter what, the higher performing students always outperform the lower performing students. But that's not always true. And this data shows that it's not always true. Therefore, my hypothesis is correct, and I agree with my hypothesis. Do you have any questions?
I think everything was answered. Thanks for what you do.
I appreciate everything that I do. Everything that I do.
Questions?
Good job.
Thank y'all.